Hi, this is your Professor Judy Paparozzi for Human Trafficking and Slavery. I hope well, I can't say I hope you're enjoying the course, but I hope you're learning a lot and you have developed some of the passion that has kept me teaching this course and offering conferences and talks and training, etc. over the last 12 years. I would like to talk to you briefly about making sure, because this is also a writing enriched course, making sure that you stop making errors. I noticed after our little fall break, a lot of the errors that I had corrected with you were resumed. So I'm going to go over about 10, 12 errors, and I'd like you to stop making them in your next essay and on Italy, whatever it is, and please make sure that you understand that this is a mandatory viewing, so please take notes. Okay, first of all, I'm sure this problem has pretty much been resolved by all of you, but you are required to use my tier ranking examples in the document that I provide in the second module. In the second module, you'll see how to write up your tier ranking using examples. The examples are highlighted in yellow. So just change the first word. So if it's tier 2, don't put Ukraine. Please put whatever the current tier 2 country is. And copy my highlighted yellow. The word example is highlighted in yellow. My highlighted yellow example. If you don't do it from now on, since we're on this last half of the semester, I will give you a 0 and give you a chance to redo it. But I take it seriously and I have my reasons. Secondly, if you don't proofread it, you're also going to get a low grade, because I'm reading mistakes that if you'd taken 5 minutes to just read over your work, you would see the mistakes, like you didn't capitalize the first word of a sentence, or you wrote the word tin instead of to. Please don't send me your unproofread work. It will affect your grade, period. And if you're going to show possession like Japan's government, it's Japan apostrophe S, because Japan is a single word. If it's a plural word, like the governor's conference, if you're talking about a bunch of governors, there'd be 50 governors in the United States, it would be governors S apostrophe, governor S and apostrophe. So singular is apostrophe S, plural is S apostrophe. Please make sure you only use an apostrophe to show possession, like I just explained, Japan's government. Japan owns the government, so Japan's government, or the governor's conference, it's showing possession of the governors of the conference. Do not use it to make any word or abbreviation plural. Okay, so NGO, when you want to put non-governmental organizations in its abbreviated form, NGO, you just add an S. Don't use an apostrophe. The rest of the world does it wrong. Trust me. This is a writing enriched course. And I have to say, I have outstanding writing skills. I'm not the best novelist or anything like that, but boy, do I have good grammar skills, rivals anybody I've ever met. So please follow my instructions. You'll be a better writer, and that will you'll do well in your jobs, etc. It's a skill I'm trying to give you. I'm not trying to make you get bad grades. I'm trying to give you a great skill that I've shared with my own kids and with others. I've helped PhD doctors get their PhDs because I was able to help them with their grammar and their work. Okay. Another thing is the source, transit, and destination question. Some of you are just defining what a source is. It says specifically, please explain by giving evidence from the Trafficking in Persons report. Don't just tell me it's a source country because victims are trafficked here. That tells me nothing. That doesn't give me any evidence. And the best place to find the evidence in the tip report is the trafficking profile. Please do not just define source, transit, or destination. Every country is a source country. So if you don't have every country as a source country, then you're already wrong. Rarely is a country a transit country where victims are taken through, but not to. A destination country is where victims are taken to. Nigeria, obviously, is a source country for victims taken to a destination country, Italy. All right. Now, run-on sentences. A lot of you do not know how to punctuate when you take two sentences and put them together as one. Well, how do you know there's two sentences? Well, a sentence, let's start with the first premise. What is a sentence? A sentence has a subject. It has a subject of the sentence, Professor Paparozzi, a verb, she teaches, Professor Paparozzi teaches human trafficking. So I have a subject and a verb, and the third thing is I have to express a complete thought. I have to express, so you understand at the end of the sentence, when you put that period, you've expressed a completed thought, all right? So Professor Paparozzi teaches human trafficking. Subject is Professor Paparozzi, verb is teaches, and I've expressed a complete thought by adding human trafficking, okay? But what if I want to combine that with another sentence? There are two ways. So you can obviously you can separate it with a period, which creates two sentences, and you don't have a problem. But if you have one subject or a subject, a verb, and you've expressed a complete thought, but you want to add another one, like this: Professor Paparozzi teaches human trafficking, comma, and she loves the passion she sees in her students. So in that second sentence that I just added, I said the subject she, and a verb loves. And whom do I love? I love my students who become passionate about human trafficking. So I have these two complete thoughts. Now there are two ways to do it. I just demonstrated the first way. The first way to do it is you use a comma. Professor Paparozzi teaches human trafficking, comma, and the word and, it's a conjunction. It's joining these two sentences, but you need both, the comma and the conjunction. And she loves her students who develop a passion for the victims of human trafficking. So I used a comma and a conjunction. So some of the other conjunctions are but, for, since, as, etc. Okay. Now, a simpler way, which a lot of you are doing, but you're using the comma by mistake, is the semicolon. The semicolon is a dot, and then it's a comma underneath it. A colon is two dots. Okay, a semicolon can be used to join two sentences together. I love the semicolon. Professor Paparozzi teaches human trafficking, semicolon. She loves her students who become passionate, period. I've combined these two wonderful thoughts together because they're related, but I've used the simplest form of punctuation in the world. I just had to make sure I had a sentence on the left before the semicolon and one after it. So how do I check it? Do I have a subject? Professor Paparozzi, she. Do I have verbs? Teaches and loves. And do I express a complete thought? Yes, I can express a complete thought before I use the semicolon, and I expressed a complete thought with the subject, verb, and a complete thought after the semicolon. So the easiest way to connect two sentences is never use just a comma alone. The comma must work with a conjunction like and, but, for, since, as, etc. Okay, so it's a common problem. A lot of you have figured it out and corrected it, and I'm really happy about that. Okay, if you want to say a sentence and then you have something to say after it, that must also be a sentence. The victims of human trafficking suffer a lot, period. They, from disease, period. From disease is not a sentence. Remember, a sentence has a subject, the doer of the action, a verb, the action itself, teaches, loves, etc., and it expresses a complete thought. So be really careful, because where you mean to put a colon and then add a couple of words at the end that's not a sentence, you're making sentence fragments. All right, my biggest pet peeve is when you refer to one country or a government or Japan, whatever. It's one. One means you can't use their. Their is plural. T-H-E-I-R is plural. So you can't say their government. And so you can't say Japan and their government. No, it's Japan and its government, okay? Singular words take it as a pronoun, unless obviously it's male and female, okay? But if you don't know male and female, we use it. It's ITS is it shows possession, just like his. You don't put an apostrophe, HI apostrophe S with his. ITS is the possessive, and it is IT apostrophe S. Okay, when you start out a sentence by saying in 2021, it's a time phrase, it's an introductory phrase, put a comma. In 2021, comma, this happened. In 2022, comma, this happened. On Wednesday, comma, this happened. So if you're going to have a little time phrase at the beginning of your sentence, set it off from the rest of the sentence with a simple comma. Okay, so introductory phrases, a lot of you are missing these as well. An introductory phrase is before you get to that subject that I mentioned, before you get to that verb, okay, there is additional information. For example, I'm going to talk about myself. I loved my class. I'm going to say that. That's the main sentence. But I'm going to go back to add a little bit more information at the beginning of the sentence to introduce the idea to you. But I, Professor Paparozzi or Judy Paparozzi or whatever, is going to be the subject of the sentence. So here, when she was in law school, comma, that's that introductory phrase. Professor Paparozzi loved her criminal law course. Okay? So when she was in law school, that when tells you right away, that's not going to be the subject of the sentence. The subject is going to be, you have to figure it out, who's the doer of the action, who's the one who loved criminal law. Well, it's Professor Paparozzi. So that introductory information, when she was in law school, comma, Professor Paparozzi loved her criminal law classes. Okay, so that extra information that's being added at the beginning of the sentence is either an introductory phrase or clause. Not important which one it is. It's a little different in the definition, but it needs to be set off from the rest of the sentence by a comma. Now, I do it all the time, no matter how many words, but the rule is 4 words or more. But I do it even if it's 3 words. In her teens, comma, Professor Paparozzi wanted to work in prisons. Okay, so even though in her teens is only 3 words, I still set it off. And why do I set it off? Because it gives clarity. And the whole function of punctuation is to clarify what someone is saying. Okay, so that's why I use punctuation very correctly, absolutely following the rules, because it's meant to give the clear message to somebody who's not talking to somebody. You're somebody who's reading what somebody else has written. Now, another pet peeve of mine, we can't start a sentence with a number. We can have the number written out, but we can't start a number like 1, 2, 3. You have to write, if it's 123, 123 victims were helped last year. You must write out the first word of every sentence if it's a number, okay? And if you are going to write numbers in your work, we spell out the first word of a sentence and any number between 0, obviously 1 to 10. And after that, we can write the numerals. We can write 1,257 by just writing numbers, okay? All right, commas and periods go inside of your quotation marks. So if you're using quotations, put the commas inside that final quotation mark, not outside. Outside's for other marks of punctuation, but commas and periods default inside of a quotation mark. The TIP report, the Trafficking in Persons report, is a name. When do we capitalize in English? We capitalize all names. Professor Paparozzi, Aunt Judy. Aunt is my title, Judy is my name. Both get capitalized. Anything that's a name is capitalized. The first word of a sentence is capitalized, and the letter I, like I meaning not these, but I meaning me, that is capitalized. And everything else is kind of up for grabs, but every name must be capitalized. So why are you writing TIP and then not capitalizing the word report when the name of the report is the Trafficking in Persons report? That's its full name, or the TIP report. But why aren't you capitalizing the word report? It's part of a name, the TIP report. So please capitalize it. And you don't need to capitalize human trafficking if you're referring to the crime, because it's the name of a crime, but it's not capitalized in English. This course is capitalized because it's the name of a formal name of a course. So you capitalize human trafficking and slavery, but when you refer to human trafficking in your work, please don't capitalize it unless the word human begins is the first word of a sentence. Now, when it comes to the recommendations, the Trafficking in Persons report writes commands. Increase this, change the law. What am I starting with? I'm starting with a verb. Do this, do that, basically, okay? But that's not what I want in your recommendations. What I want in your recommendations is Japan must, Italy must do the following, whatever the verb is. Increase its protection of victims, increase training of law enforcement. But I want them in full sentences, so not commands. Commands are words that begin with a verb, not a question, but commands are increase the protection for victims. Increase is a verb. It's an action. It does an action, right? It increases. So it does an action. You can't start a sentence with that, but you can start a command with that. Go to the store, to my kid, go to bed. You can use go there as a command because I'm talking to somebody, but you can't use it in the summary. You have to say Japan must increase its protection. North Korea must change its laws, etc. So just make sure you write full sentences. And finally, as I mentioned before, we don't use the apostrophe to pluralize anything in English except for one minor thing with numbers. You don't, and there's one other time that you use an apostrophe to pluralize it. Don't do it in this class. NGO is pluralized by adding an S, okay? And by the way, when you say the Supreme Court, a lot of you will write SCOTUS. A lot of you will write MOT or MOC or an abbreviation. It's the SCOTUS, the Minister of the Interior. So don't put Minister of Interior as MOI without the word the before it. And that is it. So please take the time to proofread. Please take the time to proofread. Use my examples for the tier ranking. And again, this video is mandatory. So please watch it before you submit your next one. If you've already submitted it, go back and look over the submissions for tomorrow and correct any errors that you see based on this video. Thank you.